Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to the March 28th, 2023 meeting of the Municipal Airport Authority. We'll call the meeting to order. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting from March 14th?
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Call the roll, please.
Engen.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Captan.
Aye.
Ekman.
Aye.
Aye. Item number 2, approve the airport vouchers totaling $232,260,018. Motion to approve.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Engen.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Captan.
Aye.
Ekman.
Aye.
Aye. We have approval of the individual vouchers A through E. Is there any discussion of any of those vouchers or a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion to approve, second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Engen.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Captan.
Aye.
Ekman.
Aye.
Aye. Item number 4 is an extension of the Eastside Terminal lease for 1954 investment through with a 3% per square foot increase on the lease amount for 1 year. Is there any discussion or questions about the lease extension?
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. Call the roll, please.
Engen.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Captan.
Aye.
Ekman.
Aye.
Aye. We have the bid tabulation and recommendation award for Mead and Hunt regarding the replacement of the boarding bridge, gate 4.
I'll give you this one, Sean. So I think all of you got this, the tabulation for the boarding bridge. First item to note, on the very bottom of bid schedule 2, I had a typo on line item 6 there, it should say new boarding bridge, and I think it says refurbished bridge. So,
I have a question on the same amount.
yeah, I'll get into that here. So, just a brief recap here. So we had sent this bid out. We had a bid schedule 1 for just a refurbished bridge, just to see where the pricing would come in at, and then the second bid schedule is a new boarding bridge. Depending on the pricing. The airport authority obviously choose what they wanted to do. The first off, you can see there the prices from Aero Bridge Works were the same, just short of $1.3 million. Then in addition to that, the pricing that I had for each of the bridges was based on input from Aero Bridge Systems. Those are the prices that they gave me. I just said, what do we need here? I don't estimate boarding bridges day in and day out. Those are the prices that they gave me. I assumed that would be the furnished install price. That was not the case. So they cleared that up after the fact. I was kind of shocked by that. But then obviously you can see that the prices for the refurbished and the new are the same. We had asked them about that, and basically what it boils down to is they wanted to sell a new bridge just from the I suppose just from the logistics of trying to find one, somewhere out there that would fit Fargo. The timing of it, when it could be refurbished, when it could be installed, and I think with the new bridge, they have much more control over the schedule. Is I guess the information that they had given us. So the intent is to pay for this with federal funding. So we have all the federal requirements in there, and one of those is the Buy American certification. So I guess my recommendation to the airport authority is to award it, subject to receiving that approval from the FAA. Aero Bridge Works does have a standing waiver for they've submitted it already. It's the bridge and a list of parts that I can't decipher, so I just have to sit down and with them and figure out what it all includes. Does it include like a GPU and the HVAC systems, all that kind of thing. So once I get that figured out, then we'll get it submitted to the FAA. I don't expect there to be any problems, but just so the airport is covered, it should be
Mr. Chair?
awarded subject based on that.
Jeff, so the disassembly and removal of the current is included in this?
That's in here.
That's included
Yes.
in it, regardless, it's a
Correct.
repair or disassembly?
Correct.
And what museum is gonna take the old bridge?
The Smithsonian will take it, I'm sure.
So as far as like a new bridge or a refurbished bridge, what are the differences or what are the benefits to having the new bridge? Like would there be, like you had said, age, the back?
Just the age, brand new,
Just the
full
age.
warranty, yeah.
So like maneuverability, maybe better, is there like a window, is there insulation, is there?
That all should be, can't speak for a window, but it should all be up to code, insulated, all that kind of thing, so. I would just do a new bridge.
Or you would do?
All of that is in there, so
Is it in the refurbished one as well, since?
it's in the refurbished one regardless, so.
Mr. Chair, I think as we move forward with this rebuild of this airport, repairing things that are vintage is a great idea, but the new product obviously is new technology, new materials, and I think we should move forward with a new bridge.
With this bid tab concerns because both list refurbish boarding bridge.
Right, I fixed it on this one,
Oh,
I gave a
okay.
copy to Sean, so.
Yeah, cause
Yep.
if we accept the bid, they could then still substitute a refurbished bridge, right?
No,
This will be new. This is prepared by Mead Hunt, so the
Yep.
bid is very clear.
Yep.
There's a difference in the bid.
Okay.
I was gonna send out both tabs, it's 100 pages, I guess I can send out the PDFs of what the bridge looks like.
No, it was just a concern as we looked at this,
It said
and nobody else bid this, right? Correct.
no one else bid, there was a couple of different plan holders. One, we had even, answered like 2 pages of questions for them, and they, for whatever reason, decided not to bid it, so.
They're too busy.
Yeah.
Other projects.
And with a new boarding bridge, will it service, say like if we got Sun Country in there, what kind of aircrafts will it all service?
Everything that's here today, so,
So everything from RJs to
correct. There's a list on the plan. I
A321 and.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be the biggest
The biggest?
goal in that
Right.
space. But a
Okay.
320 and a 320.
Okay,
I'll also note on here, you can see that there's items 3 through 5 on each of the bid schedules is basically for paint marking removal and replacement for all the painting, for gate 4. Just taking the existing striping off and repainting it in a different configuration to fit that specific bridge. It's just short of $57,000, which obviously is a insane amount of money, so I have a call into Aero Bridgeworks to see if there's any way that they can bring that down. What it boils down to is they have a subcontractor called Highlight Pavement Markings, I believe it's called. They come out of New York, they do a phenomenal job, and in fact did the runway painting out there at Hector. So a lot of that cost is just their mobilization expense, so we'll see if it's worth an asking.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is the fact that we need to repair the concrete underneath, are they aware of that as well? That that's in a phase of concrete reconstruction too?
That, there's no immediate plans to do that this
Okay,
year,
but it's
so, we'll have to deal with it, when that time comes, so.
I would just make them aware that there's gonna be concrete reconstruction, so
Sure.
they don't put a quiet caveat of, well, the concrete has to be to this spec before we'll put it in,
Right.
where we know it's probably deteriorating.
Sure.
so backing up to the $57,000 for painting, that's painting just around the,
The aircraft envelope, the red and white markings, the lead-in lines to the gate.
okay,
Remove what's there and, like I said, reposition it for that specific gate. Repaint it.
since mobilization is a big part of that cost, is there anybody that's more local that could do it?
There's plenty of people locally that can do it, and that's what I need to work with Aero on, and see if we can find somebody, so.
Okay.
The biggest challenge is just removing it actually, so painting is a piece of cake.
Wait to see if in the spring, if it's still under there.
Right, yeah, if spring comes.
So your motion would be to approve the purchase of the new bridge, subject to FAA approval of the biomedical requirements, which I don't think is gonna be any issue.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would move to accept the recommendations of Mead and Hunt for a new bridge to replace this vintage structure.
I second.
Motion and second, call the roll.
Hingham,
Aye.
Lind. Lind,
Aye.
Captain.
Aye.
Heckman,
Aye.
Osborne.
Aye.
Thanks. Totally.
Just one more quick note, Arrow did say also that
Mr. Chair, I had one question.
Go ahead.
Is there any way that we can get heating and air conditioning in the new jet bridge?
That was gonna be a question I had too, especially heating.
You don't want it.
Yes, we do.
It's a supplement.
We have it in Winnipeg, you can get it here.
Disaster. Once you open up that
Well-
end of the bridge, the aircraft, all the heat's gone, so it's I would advise against
That's
that.
that, but well, that open end, you're just funneling everything right out.
It's gone. Once the door opens, it's
gone.
gone.
It's a complete waste of money to do that. Once that bridge opens with the northwest wind, there's nothing there.
Things with the newer bridge, it should connect to the airplane a little better than the older bridge does, so, I mean, it will have a better seal, but it's still not gonna be heated.
I thought you mentioned HVAC or something as a part of the new bridge.
I don't know exactly what is all in there to be very honest.
There's no
with you.
HVAC.
Yeah.
So we won't need a snow shovel in the bridge?
Well, with this stuff, if they're wind blow, it's gonna get hit.
Arrow did say that if we can get through this Buy American quickly, there's an outside chance they could do the install in September or October this year, so no guarantee, but we thought it initially it might be a little longer.
Eric, it sounds like you have some experience in Winnipeg. What do they do with the open end area?
They have a garage door just like we do that closes, and then when the aircraft is not there, and then they heat it all up, and then as soon as they get the jet bridge attached to the aircraft, and then they pull the canopy over so it's kind of seals, it does just fine. So, I mean, they do it all over the world. I don't know why we couldn't do it.
I guess if you want to rebid it, you can.
I'll face north.
Yeah, it just face
And we don't know if,
Face north.
we don't,
Doesn't work.
this is not included in any of the bids.
No.
One thing that I have seen is a double door entry to the jet bridge, which at least, even though the jet bridge itself isn't warm, the gate area itself isn't so impacted by that cold wind. Like, sometimes I've actually seen like like the cold and the white, like rushing
Rolling
into the
through.
gate area. Like if there was something we could do about that, then maybe that would be less expensive than heating the jet bridge, and at least if the people aren't comfortable in the jet bridge, they would be more comfortable in
It's gonna work
the
just
gate
fine.
area.
Our terminal faces the wrong way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna work just
That's
fine.
the problem.
I think you're throwing money at something that isn't.
All right, what's pleasure? We've actually had a vote, so we're a little bit out of whack here with Robert's Rules of Order, but. All right, call the roll.
Hingham,
Aye.
Lind,
Yeah.
Captain,
Aye.
Heckman,
Aye.
Osborne.
Aye.
Jeff, Salchi,
All right, item number 6.
Again here.
Yeah.
Okay, so, oh gosh, where do I begin? So, so Mead and Hunt was working with the airport authority to do a design to reconstruct the South GA apron. And we had begun that process last fall, and the design is done. The FAA actually allowed us to go out for bid, I think it was starting on the 15th of March, okay? So, like we've been talking with the authority, there was, when we had done the design, we had done some initial screenings for soil contamination. And there were some elevated readings, and then we had worked with Terracon to come up with an approach now to test for specific contaminants, whether it's, obviously fuel or metals or the buzz thing now is PFAS. So we were in that process. We've kept and we started that like 4 or 5 months ago. And we've kept the FAA in the loop, up front with them through this whole time. We engaged the DEQ, the Department of Environmental Quality, at the state. They're on board with our approach. They just want to see, once these tests do come back, what they are, and obviously the plan to deal with them. We've informed the FAA through this whole time. Like I said, they know we've gone out for bid. Last Wednesday, we had our pre-bid meeting here in the boardroom here. There was, I think, 4 or 5 different contractors. I got out of the meeting, got a call from the FAA, said, no, we're gonna make you do a full-blown environmental assessment, which basically is time and money. And so what it entails is, there's no way we can reconstruct the apron this summer. And the whole point is obviously there's a need because the pavement is in such bad condition. The airport authority's been saving up in AIP entitlement money for 3 years to put towards the project. And the air show is in 2024, so we wanted to get it done ahead of that, so the air show still can go on. So effectively what it means is, this project is, just kicked down the road for, 2 or 3 more years, until we can get past the air show. So I had reached out to all the contractors that were on the bidders list just to explain it in person, because I wanted them to all know that it wasn't the airport authority's decision. The last thing I want them to feel is like, this is your choice. It's not. That's coming directly from the FAA. So what we need to do now is just, work with the FAA to figure out a scope of work for an environmental assessment. Hopefully we can do some kind of short form or fast tracked EA just to satisfy their requirements, so we can move on.
So we'll start to know the results of the testing in mid-April. We don't know if there's PFAS available in the soil until early May. At the end of the day, it's not gonna change the remediation plan. It's either gonna be land farmed at the airport or go to the landfill. So spend all this money and still the same result is gonna happen.
And then to add insult to injury, the FAA said we're not gonna pay for the environmental assessment either. We can do it, and delay your project, but we're not gonna pay for it. So I'm not gonna give up on that fight yet, so I'm gonna still try to get them to pay for it, but.
It's another $160,000. We did approve at our last meeting before Terracon going on additional drilling, which the FAA agreed to, so that they can identify hopefully the scope and bandwidth of what's out there. But it's most importantly is the testing, which has to be done, whether it's now or in 5 years. It still has to be tested to see what it is. High probability it's going to be some type of petroleum underground tank that leaked decades ago, or jet fuel, something like that.
Right, and the frustrating thing is, there's so much time and effort, spent to get to this day, the coordination with all the SLG tenants, get them geared up. And, ultimately it's one individual at the FAA that said no. So the fortunate part is that the airport does have some expiring entitlements, which basically is if you don't use them, you lose them. We can direct those monies towards the terminal apron or the Fargo Jet Center apron. So the money won't be lost. So we can, the silver lining is unfortunate as is that we still can switch gears and do another project.
So the cargo entitlements that will expire at the end of September can only go to the North G, they can't go to the terminal apron. So 200-some thousand in cargo entitlements.
Do we have the history of all the tanks and things that have been in there, or is it Wild
I could dig,
West?
there's a lot of files in the basement of the East Terminal, but.
So we don't know what's under there either.
But it's in a location where the old maintenance shop was, and it's oil, fuel, gas. Could be an underground tank there that we don't know about.
I don't know about it.
Radiant.
It was put in the 50s, so.
I would imagine they're gonna make us do a soil test too, aren't they, for contaminated soil?
That's going on right now.
Correct. We were gonna do that regardless. So
Yeah.
and that's what, I mean, the DEQ will make you do that, and the FAA just elevated it to a full-blown environmental assessment.
So Keith and Kevin that are here, I guess, we'll do our best to keep that maintained and keep the FOD down there. There was talk of doing some type of a maintenance project to grind some of the concrete off, put an asphalt overlay on. We haven't totally vetted that out yet to try and reduce some of that FOD that's down there, but at this point, our funds are pretty well committed. We get this terminal project done. We'll see.
So at this point, it's environmental, it's not, there isn't any salvage or other tanks that have to be removed.
We won't know until we do.
Mr. Chair, there's a,
Yes.
So if they're sampling the apron and they're going along and they get to the hangars and they're still finding contaminated soil, will they go in and drill inside the hangars?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
No.
All we're testing, ultimately what's being tested for and will be removed is just enough to get the pavement section in. So if there's contamination, 10 feet down, we're not digging 10 feet down to collect it all.
And the reason
And
is,
the DEQ has said that's fine.
the reason is we're not changing the purpose of the ramp. It's not like we're tearing the ramp out and building a hangar there. In that case, you'd have to remove everything. Here, it's the same purpose, so you only remove what's necessary to accommodate construction. So if it goes 8 feet depth, we only have to remove 2 or 3 feet, whatever it is, to accommodate the concrete apron.
Got any other questions? So this is just at this
Disappointing.
point to receive the update?
Yeah, that's fine.
Number 7, update on our favorite thing, parking.
I know Greg Pearson is
That's
on
what it was.
and Terry Stroh are on, so if you wanna give an update on the move to the new Exit Plaza, which is open, I guess, between Greg and Terry, kind of where we're at with
Do you want to kick off, Terry, and I'll jump in?
Sure. Right now, I believe all we have is the outside panels, but being winter doesn't want to end in Fargo, we're having a difficult time getting it done because they're so big, and so when it's windy and stormy, they have a hard time, but they're actually really close to having those done. They're working it to from the standpoint of keeping lanes open. It looks like we only have one, the lane closest to the building itself has got some panels to do on it yet, and then the soffit on the top to finish off the roof, and then we'll be done. I think Gretchen just wouldn't even give me an idea when, because they just never know what it's gonna be. So it's really, Powers took that over. They actually, got rid of their sub and had them come up with a guy and teach them how to put them on, and so their guys are putting them on, and it's looking good. But I'm guessing it won't be very long, a couple of weeks maybe, if the weather, if it doesn't get crazy.
So Terry, the Sun Electric did set the generator yesterday or the day before, so the backup generator is there. We did lose power last week here, the whole airport, 10, 11,000 other customers lost power. Here in the terminal, of course, we have backup. Our airfield vault has backup, our East Terminal does, Customs does. But the parking lot does not have backup power. So that generator is part of this Exit Plaza project. It's set, it's not hooked up yet. And the thing you have to remember is that when it's an unexpected outage, the generator doesn't start right away. So you're probably still gonna have to go around and reset all of the parking entrances and so forth. There was an issue when the power came back on. Darren was out here with the electrician, I don't know, 1, 2 in the morning. They found a circuit that had blown in the west exit plaza area to get the parking lot back online. But that'll help going forward in the future as that backup generator. So I don't know when it's gonna be tested or up, maybe next week.
Well, they thought by the end of this week.
Okay, so possibly by the end of this week, that generator will be hooked up and ready to go. So that's the only other addition, Terry.
Okay.
And just to add to the power conversation and also the parking update for the exit plaza, one of the things we're looking at doing as we relocate the network equipment from the old plaza to the new plaza is making sure we have battery backup so we can, I guess, take that lull of loss of power, even though there's a generator present moving forward. So we'll have UPS battery backups, rack mounting for the equipment at the new exit plaza. With respect to everything else, we have completed the move of all the equipment with respect to the parking equipment at the exit lanes. Flash completed that about 2 weeks ago during my visit there in person. So we should be good to go there. Everything's been working just fine. We are acquiring some temporary signage to place on poles. That way we can kind of direct passengers to the appropriate lanes based off of how they want to exit, whether they're using a reservation, whether they choosing to pay with cash or whether they're choosing to pay with credit cards. So we will have that in place just until we get the Daktronic signs, which have been ordered, which should be here in about 7 to 8 weeks or so. So we've been staying in touch with Daktronics, trying to get those sooner than later. But in the interim, we are going to have some temporary signage placed on poles because we don't want to fix anything permanent to the building, given the nice aesthetics it has on the outside. So that's a parking update, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have about the exit plaza.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Say, with respect to all of the gating for all of the new stuff that is done, is the default on power out, the gates come up, so there is egress?
It is going to be set to fail safe.
Okay. All right.
Which essentially, like you say, it doesn't trap you in the parking lot. Particularly if we're talking about the economy lots. That's the biggest part because it's a little difficult to have visibility from the exit plaza to those economy lots.
So Greg, what's the situation with, I think Jay had mentioned there's a unique thing with Flash in that if someone pulls up, pushes the button to get their parking voucher, no voucher comes out for whatever reason, they keep pushing the button, eventually the arm goes up and they get into the lot without a voucher. What's being done about that?
So there's an open item, and this is not just Flash here in Fargo. This is Flash across the board, hospitality, other airports, everywhere. So they're throwing a lot of resources at it to get it resolved. It's just a known, I guess, issue, bug, and so they're working through that. They do have a solution that they're running through internally first to test before they roll it out to the clients. What I'm hearing is they have a date of mid-April is when they want to have it out in the field after they completed all their quality assurance testing. In the interim, they have provided us with some sort of a workaround in the sense of they've noticed that it happens much less often, I guess, if you will, when you reboot the kiosk, on a periodic basis. So we have been testing it out to see if we can kind of minimize it and mitigate it as best we can. Just to let you know when that does happen, which is not a daily occurrence, but it does happen more than we want it to happen. We use LPI, which allows us to let us know, what cars were parked in here at what time, and that's how we're able to charge them the right amount. If they leave the same day, then obviously we just go based off of the lost ticket procedures we use.
I have a question for you, Greg, while you're on the line.
Sure.
So at the last meeting, we were discussing towing vehicles so that we could plow some, clean up the parking lot. Is there a reason why those vehicles cannot be replaced to the original spot that they were in after the snow has been cleared?
Have to tow them again when it snows the next day, so.
I mean, so say you move the vehicles and then you clear the area and you move them back.
If it snows the next day, we'd have to
So
move.
like towing customers that are parked in a spot that they should be parked in, or?
Okay, so we were just talking about how customers may not be aware that their car or their vehicle has been relocated when they come home for their trip, because I think the notification process is really not super clear. And then they go out to the parking lot and they've got their kids and their luggage and it's dark and they can't find their car. And I know a family this just happened to, the day after our meeting. They flew in at 11 o'clock on the United flight and they could not find their vehicle. So I'm wondering if there's a reason, you know, if we're clearing the snow and people are paying for parking, they should be able to find their car when they return.
So the context of how I was speaking of it, at least, was towing the vehicles that are parked in spaces that they shouldn't be parked in. And I think we were kind of talking about the verbiage of pre-book and reservations and the confusion that some of those, different terminology was causing. So take, for instance, if you have a reservation, but you park in a premium reserved spot, or a pre-book passenger, but you parked in a premium reserved spot and we relocate your vehicle elsewhere, we wouldn't want to put it back there just because that belongs to another customer or another passenger. It's my understanding we don't tow, correct me if I'm wrong, if just to clear a spot though.
Okay, I was under the impression that some vehicles were being moved so that we could just clear some snow.
I mean, usually they park in a snow pile
Okay,
and then they can't move the snow pile.
okay,
But it's marked, no parking, right in the corners and stuff. I mean, that's the deal. They're not holding people on spots.
The only
Okay.
ones that are being moved are the ones that are hampering snow removal, either where they piled the snow or they're parked in an edge where they can't get the loader, the snow removal equipment, the buckets and so forth through, which are barreled off. Sometimes they park outside the barrel.
sure,
That wasn't real clear,
okay,
when we were talking last. It sounded like they were to accommodate snow removal, having to move snow.
Well, I mean, if it's parked in a parking space though, then that's kind of what I was speaking to.
I think there's two situations. It's clearly parked in a no parking spot. We understand that.
great,
There have been cars that are being moved that are in a confused area. They might have been in the reserve preferred, which I hope you got your map straightened out on that because it didn't show on.
Yeah,
so Greg, I'm wondering if maybe on the receipts that people get when they park, if it could be indicated that we do have a kiosk inside the terminal that they could pay. I think a lot of people are not aware that they can actually pay their parking ticket inside when they return.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
sure. I'll check with Flash and see if there's enough real estate or if they have the ability to put that and include that on the receipt. I'll also say one step we took a few months back was adding I call it a video, but it's really a quick blurb in baggage claim that speaks to the pay on foot machine in the terminal. So while you're waiting there for your bags, it's kind of letting you know that you can pay for your parking at the pay on foot machine. I believe that is still running in baggage claim.
Mr. Chair,
It was yesterday.
another question. I guess if the fact that we have something inside to pay for, by practice and my years of flying, I leave the ticket in the vehicle. I don't bring it in just by the chance of getting lost. So it's kind of a,
That's where I am too.
Yeah.
I always leave it on my dash.
Yeah.
But if it was
Now, one thing
clearly
you do-
indicated on
Sorry.
the ticket that I could pay inside,
Get out of your car and walk back in the terminal building.
no, yeah, I mean, then I would put it somewhere safe, like by my driver's license and pay when I arrived here, so it'd be one less step as I'm leaving.
There was an issue too where some of those were fading as they sat on dashboards, but I think you changed the paper like Minot did to alleviate some of
That's correct.
the degradation of the barcode or whatever that's called on there. And then sometimes if people put them in their purses, wallets, or other things, it does wear off. Then they come back and it doesn't work.
Okay.
So, do you have any stats on how much the pay on foot machine is used, Greg? Is it increasing, staying steady? Or if you can get that?
It increased shortly after we put that messaging up in baggage claim, so there was a good return on that, even though there wasn't an investment, so to speak. But I can get you some hard statistics with respect to since it was actually put in place, how it's
push it on social media and other places as much as we can. Hopefully people will discover it.
Oh, go ahead. And then I had another question about the $750, you know how you can buy the insurance for $1 and then it's a $750 fee if if your flight cancels and you've prepaid for your parking, there's a $750 penalty fee.
That's correct. That's a Cabu, who's our third-party partner that handles reservations and dynamic pricing. That's the fee that's not refundable.
We've had a lot of flights canceled this winter, unfortunately, due to weather, mostly. Do you have any stats on how many people are getting stuck with that $750 fee?
I don't have any stats, but I can tell you this much. When around the holiday period, Christmas holiday to be specific, we actually talked about all these different weather issues we were experiencing at another airport, the Southwest issue around Christmas. And so we did apply some discretion during that period to where we did not impose that fee for a certain amount of time. And then, obviously we backpedaled on that a little bit. And we did the same thing there. So with that said, I don't have any specific, I can tell you this much, outside of that period, anybody that canceled within that window ended up, getting everything back except that $7 fee.
Because we want to encourage people to book ahead of time. I mean, especially when we've got heavy traffic at the airport with the parking and it just seems like you're adding insult to injury when people have to cancel a trip due to a weather issue.
We ask folks, and a lot of times they do reach out to us if they do have a flight. It's not really intended, to your point, to penalize people with cancellations that they, had no part in. It's really just to provide Cabu with something in case it's not a flight cancellation. So we ask folks to reach out to us and let us know when those are the cases so we can apply that discretion. But we do get those requests periodically and we address them accordingly. But we have to, know about it in a sense of if it's related to a flight cancellation.
How do we handle, these sort of appeals or, because it doesn't seem like a lot of people are able to get in touch either through the 2 phone lines or, pull up to the exit plaza. How, it seems to me we might be chasing a very expensive $7.50.
Well, those requests would come after the fact through email. In most cases, we haven't received any calls about my flight was canceled. Can I get the $7 refund or $7 feedback? We have an email address for our parking at ntplus.com. We respond to all emails, most emails, I should say. I don't want to always say all. Within 24 hours. Every now and then it may be 48 or so. It just depends on how we're inundated. But any of those requests, we catalog and keep all of those requests, and they come in through email. The calls and the intercoms would be stuff with respect to having difficulty entering the lot, exiting the lot. Again, some of these recent issues is just part of the transition from the old to the new plaza. Once we get fully settled in there with everything moved over, all the equipment and network equipment, I think you'll see that that'll be in our rearview mirror. So we didn't have these issues leading up to the move, and it's just part of transitioning to anything new.
I don't think we've ever gotten an email or a phone call about the $750 that I know of. People aren't shy, they'll call their email about anything.
They sure will, and again, we apply the discretion. I mean, if it's a flight cancellation, if it's something out of their control, we don't penalize it, and most folks are pleased with the response that they get. We haven't had, any issues of complaints about the $7 again, because if it's a flight cancellation, we apply the appropriate discretion for that.
When you make your reservation, you're fully aware that that is a possibility, so.
Well, it just seems it's been a tough winter. Parking's been an issue. There doesn't seem, we kind of tend to forget that we have people that fly once every 5 years, and the whole system is unique and new to them. I've never been impressed that we have a lot of information about how to get assistance in the parking lot. That if your car door is, frozen in, how do you get help doing that? I know we talk about there's numbers and stuff, but not at the point of impact that, with your car. And so maybe with the electronic signage or some more information there, just.
Maybe by the
Well, I
flagpoles,
think
we
that-
put a massive sign by the flagpoles, so when you walk out, you can see what services are there. I mean, how else do you wanna do it?
No,
It
it's.
certainly could help.
Yeah, it's, I can identify with people, especially with small kids, late at night, in the north wind, we talk about the north wind on the bridges and everything else. It's a terrible way to end a vacation for our customers. It's the last thing.
Don't go on vacation.
Well,
It's winter.
we want people to fly out of Fargo, and so everything that we can do to make their experience here better, that we're able to do is I think important.
So one other opportunity we have, Mr. Chairman, as well, to communicate to our passengers is with this parking guide that I spoke to when I was in person. That's going to actually give us the real estate on the website in order to list the different services that we have and can offer, particularly, during the winter months with respect to, like you said, when you come back and you have a lot of snow accumulated in and around your vehicle and things like that, how to go about getting assistance, what numbers to call, and all those different, steps and resources that you can leverage. So whether it's a jump start, whatever the case may be. So, we've already set up and coordinated the initial kickoff meeting that's happening this Thursday with the Flink group, so we can kind of start that transition or pass the baton, if you will. And so we look forward to having something that we can show you guys and launch in the near future. Again, that's going to be really key because we'll have the ability to put out messaging that speaks directly to the passengers and pivot when we need to.
Mr. Chair, to some extent, the travelers have to take some personal responsibility too. They can't assume we're gonna take care of them just because they're renting a space, so there is some personal responsibility that needs to be accounted for.
One thing I was thinking about is, say we've got different sized vehicles. You've got, say, like a Mini Cooper's parked next to a Suburban, and then if it's being plowed, that means the Mini Cooper's gonna have like 6 feet of depth of snow to plow out or to shovel on their own to free themselves from a parking lot. Maybe we could have like a large vehicle parking area or extra small vehicle parking, like they do in parking garages, like around corners, they'll say small vehicles here or large vehicles there, because especially when it comes to the snow removal, and we don't want to get the plows too close to the vehicles so they get damaged, so there'll always be a little snow even behind like a Suburban or a large pickup. But if you have a small vehicle, you're definitely at a disadvantage when it comes to snow in the way that we move snow now.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. The only challenge I could see is during the winter months when most folks are going to probably park wherever they can find a parking space. And then it'll be hard to kind of decipher how much do we allocate to each. But I mean, we can do that. I mean, it's not difficult. I just would say in your market, based off of how you're running with capacity, inventory, particularly as it's seasonal, granted, I think it'll definitely work outside of this 3 to 4 month stretch. That may be the biggest challenge. And look, if we go into it knowing that this will be the period that, it may not fit, then we could definitely, look at doing something like that.
Just trying to brainstorm ways that we can serve
Sure.
our
No,
parking
it's a good idea.
public a little better.
I have a question, you guys. I'm bad at reading signage, but at the same time, my wife is really good at it. But do we have anything inside the airport that would actually say, hey, did you know that they will do this, they will do this, they will do this? So again, it's really more about, I think usually, you know, maybe a little older demographic that doesn't use a website very often, that doesn't know that. I mean, I think I was at the airport, or I've been working at the airport for almost 30 years, and I think I found that out probably 5-6 years ago, and I didn't realize I could get shoveled out and all those kind of things. So I'm not sure if there'd be any signs that we could provide out front of the gate area or the checkpoint, just in that way people would maybe, again, the people that aren't using the web would be able to see that. Just an idea.
I made some notes to put some signage in the vestibules. We can come up with something.
I'm wondering if when maybe Clear Channel puts the new boards in that are more of a TV type of thing where they change the screen, if you could have.
We already have that.
Okay.
That's what Greg was talking about downstairs.
Okay.
To use the pay-on-foot machine.
Yeah.
There's a cost to that. I mean, we're paying good money
Okay.
for it, but, so, but I don't know if they have any bandwidth
Yeah.
here in the concourse, but.
Well, when we talk to Clear Channel, I mean, people are more likely to look at an ad if they're waiting for information, you know, like the temperature or features at the airport, or, you know, they might get a customer's attention a little bit more to watch that ad waiting for the information to come up. Just a thought.
Well, yeah, I think
Right.
trying to get more information, that I don't think a lot of people know that you can call somebody and get help digging your car out.
And I mean, the phone
Yeah,
number is, the
and-
phone number is on the receipt, but it doesn't
Shovel
say
in the
for
trunk.
assistance call,
Shovel
it
in the
just has
trunk.
the phone number. And so you, maybe on a dark night where, you know, it may not be super obvious that assistance is available.
No, obviously, we had a few negative news articles.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, those people did not know that there was assistance available to them. It's unfortunate. Maybe their fault. But sometimes you have to make it so easy that it's hard to not know what's happening there.
Sure, and just one more thing I'll add, and great point, Terry. That's exactly why we, work with Clear Channel to try to have that presence in the terminal, and mainly catch the eyes of people while they were queuing or waiting for something, which is their bags. One other thing we're doing is an effort with the spring or summer transportation study. Those cards that I shared with you in person as well. We'll start to disseminate those, letting folks know A, about reservations, but B, instead of on the backside where we're directing them to the different parking lot, we're also going to list the different services available and pass those out as well. We feel like that's a good chance. Granted, it's a 2-day sample, but it's a good chance to engage and while we're asking those questions, provide them with some information in return with respect to the parking operation. So it's morphing. It'll always be a transportation study, but it's also morphing into a chance to really engage with the passengers and let them know what options they have when traveling out of cargo.
The other item, and this isn't SP Plus, but I have noticed that our advertisement is running now for the airport, and we're featuring our spacious parking. It's probably not the time of year to be touting parking. The beautiful picture of a nice summery parking lot with lots of places. Usually when you're having troubles in businesses, you don't want to feature that thing that you're trying to fix the most. So I thought it was kind of unique to see our ads featuring parking.
Mr. Chair, I don't like using the word troubles.
Yeah.
I don't think we have troubles. Example, people that don't have a shovel in their vehicle in the wintertime, I go back to a lot of personal responsibility. We've got to keep that in mind. We can do a lot of things for people, but if they're not going to be personally responsible for their vehicle, we can only help them so much.
And we want to help them all we can.
Within reason, yes.
All right, the second part of that item is pre-design of parking project. An update on that, you received the study, there's been a second committee meeting around that. What's remaining to be discussed in the pre-design study is a final meeting of the joint committee between the city and the airport authority. As we explore the options there. Sean, do you have any update from your last meeting?
Scott Fromming from Walker is still working on certain financials. I don't know if he's got everything from Terry and Jeff as far as some of the civil work or some of the other cost items that he was going to try and estimate. The board had mentioned doing a 4-story structure. I don't know that that was part of his scope, but I guess Scott is open and available to do that. So I would expect he'd have some type of a final pre-design report here by the end of the month, maybe sooner.
Who's doing the design?
Walker Consultants.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think one of the other considerations is sooner than later, we should have the conversation with the city about use of the mills available to support the financing of the facility. That will be a very important component, and I don't think it should be last. I think it should be closer to the beginning of the conversation.
I agree.
Yeah, I think where we need to move this, and I apologize, I will actually be gone for the next 2 meetings in the month of April. I think what we need to do is decide, is this something that we want to add into the terminal expansion project? And as we do that, make it part of the financing package as we look at options going forward. So I think we need to first make that determination if there's the agreement amongst the airport authority to move this into the project and then explore how that becomes part of the project. And cost estimates will change from 3-story to 4-story, different things. But to me, as we look at this project, that if we are seriously going to consider a parking garage, now's the time to do it while we're doing the terminal expansion. I would hate to get to the end of the terminal expansion, two and a half years of construction out here, get done with all that, and then come back and say, okay, now we're going to take another 18 to 24 months to build a ramp. So that's going to be the question that will be coming before the board. And I agree, Rick, that we need to build it right into the project. It has to be part of the whole package, the financing package, and city participation in that is something we'll have to go to the city and make the case. But I would say our next action would be to receive the report, look at the options, and for the authority here to decide, are we going to go forward and include this as part of the project?
Mr. Chair, I don't know as though we want to include it in an existing project that there's a CMAR process started, but in conjunction with, because they're two separate things.
No, and
I mean, concurrency, I guess, I agree, they could concurrently happen, but.
we will have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to mix in eligible financing. The parking isn't eligible for federal funds. To mix those in the same bond issue where for the terminal, most of that bond's going to be eligible for reimbursement. Nothing for the parking. I think that gets really, really messy on the financial side.
But a skywalk that would connect the two would be eligible for the FAA funds, is that
They
correct?
said it is, but very, very low priorities, so I don't know where that would sit with the terminal. It wouldn't be eligible, we could recover it in a PFC application at some point in the future, but the chance of getting federal funds for a Skywalker is 0, even though it's eligible. We could recover it in a PFC. Terminal projects are very, very low priority.
Okay.
We'd get money tomorrow for the ramp reconstruction, but for a terminal project, we're gonna struggle.
And I think that's the important part, that we have to first make the determination, are we are we going to push to include the parking garages as part of the project? How it's done, trying to, little change order, just slide in there, or independent project, that if this group makes the determination that a parking garage is going to be included in this in some manner, then we go about trying to figure out the ways to do it and look at the various ways to finance it. And again, we still have the open option where we do have a private developer that has the interest to look at building and operating the ramp as an independent private project, or could we explore a private partnership, private-public partnership as before. I just think, given where we are with the terminal expansion, now is the time to have this discussion and to put this forward.
But we'd wanna make sure that if a private outfit comes in and wants to build a ramp,
Yeah.
we already make about 1.7 million off of parking. They're not gonna give that up. Cause some of these people we'll provide the parking, we'll build it for you, but we get all the proceeds. That's not gonna sit well.
No. Well, and again, it's preliminary discussion.
Yeah.
They're gonna look at, what they figure their cost to build a parking facility would be. How do they operate it? What type of revenues can they expect from it? And we'd have to react to that.
And when could we, just so that we would know more details, when could we get them at a meeting?
We could,
Whether it be a parking meeting or one of our board meetings, just so that we know what
I think
our options are.
it's, well, we finished this pre-design study. We should have final, I'm assuming very quickly here. And we could start that process of just saying, hey, we're gonna have a discussion of a parking garage, how we approach it, what we do. We could invite anybody that had an interest to come in and give, kind of a presentation. But I think the first step we have to accomplish is, as the airport authority, make the determination, are we serious? Are we going forward with this? And what are the options that we have to pursue? And obviously, having somebody else build it, and we don't have to put any money out for it, is great. But what do you give up in that? Is there the possibility to purchase it back at some point or transfer ownership after a period? Those would all be open for negotiations.
Okay.
But first step would be, I believe, for this group. If this group won't support it, then there's not much else we can do with it at that point. If the airport authority is willing to take a position that we are committed to building a parking garage based on these parameters and build it into the project and figure out what the financing has to look like for that, that's where we need to be.
Okay. On that note, did we, I know last meeting we voted to extend S&P's contract for 5.5 years. Has that contract been signed? Is that finalized?
It's in the works. Greg and Stacy are working on it, yes.
Because I know last meeting we had the option to extend it for 6 months and then another 5 years. And I remember Eric Lynn saying, we're dealing with the information that we have at the time. And maybe there's more information that's forthcoming within this finalization of terminal and potential parking garage management. Maybe a 6-month contract would be more advantageous for the airport commission. Since everything seems a little unsettled.
yeah, a little awkward here. I voted
I don't-
against the motion, but the situation would be, could we extend for 6 months, determine, Jim, as you said, if somebody's building a ramp for us, are they gonna wanna have the ability to operate all the parking? Probably wouldn't make sense if we had one group operating the surface parking, another group operating the ramp. Might give us time to look at that and see if there's any possibilities. And I know SB was gonna check and see if they build ramps, if they would even have an interest in that, as has been expressed.
Yeah, I can get you that information. I'm still looking into it now that, you know, I've heard this conversation as well, and I've taken that back already to the team. So I can definitely get you an answer before your next board meeting with respect to that. Again, we have worked with different airports on surface lots before. I just need to check and see if the appetite for a ramp would be in our interest or scope.
I guess, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
We have 2 available mills to support the financing of either financing some of the bonding or refinance bonding of the terminal and or maybe a ramp. I guess before we go outside, I would want to make sure we can use those facilities and the city's on board with that before we would go down any other path. It's okay to go outside and look for help, but if we can look internally in the mechanism that we have available, I think that's the first course we have to follow.
No, I think what we're talking about here is that do we remove any options by doing the 5.5 years for consideration of a private-public partnership? If we have a 5.5 year contract on the surface parking, if there were the potential to have private involvement in the ramp, have we taken that away from ourselves or put ourselves in a position where we'd have to buy out a contract as part of that? And so I think that's.
Yeah, that's,
Mr. Chair, haven't we voted on that already?
Yes,
we did,
have voted
we
on
did.
it. And so, items that, in Robert's Rules of Order, I could not bring that back. I voted against the motion. Anybody that voted in favor of the motion could reintroduce the motion for reconsideration at a subsequent meeting.
So maybe your private party should look at partnering with SP Plus, somebody that knows how to operate parking lots.
Well, and again, I can't tell a private party what
You can suggest it
no,
to
tell them. Again, if we do this, we may have eliminated the possibility. That's what I was trying to point out last time. It may be a very slight possibility, who knows? And I don't know who the private group would be looking at for their management and everything else. But again, it just leaves open options.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, until this private group steps up and says they're going to do something, it's a lot of speculation, and we're operating on what we know today, and that's important.
Well, I think what Paul is suggesting is what a 6-month extension gives some time for some certainty, not certainty, but more information to develop.
Because it was on the table, but that was 2 weeks ago, and I don't know if that ship has sailed, but it would have maybe given us some more options.
So what's the pleasure of the board?
So I voted for it, so I can't reintroduce it then.
Yes, you can reintroduce it.
You can
voted
reintroduce it if you
in
voted for
favor.
it. If you voted against it, you can't.
Well, I just remember Eric Lynn saying let's do what we can with the information that we have. And maybe we're tying our hands unnecessarily by doing a 5.5-year contract instead of a 6-month contract followed by a 5-year contract. So S&P certainly has the ability to get the 5.5-year contract from us in 2 portions which was originally proposed 2 weeks ago.
Eric, are you still with us?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we were to break ground tomorrow on a parking ramp, it would be 2 years before that thing would be up and running. We still have a full probably year of architecture to architectural design to design the parking ramp, and we have 18 to 24 months to build the thing. I mean, we're going to be well into this 5-year contract before it ever is a problem. If we were to have to buy out a contract or something like that, we're not buying out 5 years. We might be buying out 1 or 2 years. And so, like Rick said, I mean, nobody has even stepped up yet, and I don't see really a reason to undo what we've done if just to appease a possible suitor. So if the suitor wants to come forward and let's do it. But otherwise, right now it's just all speculation in my mind. So I'm still in favor of leaving the 5.5-year contract.
Again, I think, I think what we're kind of wrestling with here is that if I agree on your timeline that it's going to be 24 or 36 months through the process, but if we were to go out and look for a private-public partnership, and they do not have the opportunity to have the parking revenue or parking management, do we preclude ourselves from even participation by groups that may kind of say the same thing to us, is that, well, we aren't going to pursue this because it's we need to have the parking revenue as part of this. And so again, this is highly speculative. We don't know if anybody is going to come to the table with this, but have we? I think what Paul is suggesting is to go back to the 6-month extension. In that time, get more clarity on whether the parking garage is something that the authority is going to move forward, and what's the financing plan. Just time to put that in place. And if none of that comes forward, then you would have the opportunity to do the 5-year renewal of it. So. But if we do sign the 5.5, we may have eliminated any of those, or put ourselves in a position of having to buy out a contract or whatever.
If I could make one comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So just to reiterate what we talked about in the last meeting, my take a little bit on that is simply, looking at it from the outside looking in, if you will, a public or private partnership, the private entity would more than likely be very interested in the revenue generated from your parking operation. The revenue tied to the operation itself and running the operation is not as rewarding or as quickly rewarding as the revenue itself. The other part of that is, I think in many ways, having a partner on board like SP Plus or a parking operator that has that airport aviation experience makes it even more enticing for that entity to come in and want to partner with you, because they can see how the revenue has incrementally increased and exponentially increased, particularly since the parking rates were adjusted, and particularly since we brought reservations onto your campus. So I think by having that experience, bringing those tools to the table, showing how we can further monetize the parking operation without adding spaces, those are all value-added things that makes it more enticing for an investor to come to the table. And I don't know that they would want to pull that away and take ownership of trying to implement and do those things, which they may not be able to do as well as we can. So I think them knowing that you're partnered with an SP Plus during that period, during that transition, understanding that you'll be taking spaces out of commerce, if you will, while you're building the garage. How can we continue to make money while we're doing that? Those are all things that we have experience and expertise with doing. And so to me, it adds value to the pitch of come build a garage for us.
Yeah,
Yeah, everybody wants to build the assets and own the assets. Nobody wants to do the management, so.
Right.
SP Plus does the management, and it takes the management headache out of the equation for the potential owners.
We're the ones that get
That's
stuck with all the maintenance and repair.
well, and again, this is speculative. You know, Sean, I know you say go tell the developer to pick this management company. Those are all things, those are all.
Not to pick them, suggest them, let them make the decision.
Yeah.
I cannot say pick them.
Okay, these are all things that we just don't know at this point. All the 6 months would do is give us an opportunity to look at some options. I doubt it's gonna change anything in 6 months, but what we would be doing is instead of doing a 5.5 year, you do the 6 month extension and then go back to a calendar year, but,
If you're talking about running simultaneously with a possible garage construction with the terminal, they better have something to us in 30 days, because we're moving. I mean, a year from now, we'll be breaking ground.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're gonna be sitting there twiddling.
well,
their
and
thumbs.
that's where this group needs to move. I was hoping that we would have had that final meeting on the pre-design so that we could actually have a discussion today about whether or not we want to pursue that. But we're not gonna pass up if the opportunity is there to build a parking garage because we didn't get the timing right. And that's on us.
Mhm.
We need to move that. And if we can't do it, that's fine. And all this discussion is moved. So I think, Paula, what we're suggesting is the 6 months give us time to still move forward with everything we have, still put in place the 5-year contract after a period if we want, or we sign a 5.5 year contract now and deal with that if it becomes an issue in a private-public partnership. So,
And I wasn't suggesting that we reinvent the wheel there. I was just going back to the original proposal, which was a 6-month contract followed by most likely a 5-year contract, which was the initial proposal.
well, what's the pleasure of the board? And I'll, again, just to reiterate, if an item has been on the agenda and passed by the board, anybody that voted against that agenda cannot reintroduce, according to Robert's Rule of Order. I'd have to check our bylaws, but it's typically 30 or 60 days after cannot reintroduce the same topic. But anybody that voted in the majority has the right to bring it back and ask for reconsideration.
Well, I was regretting after the last meeting that we didn't just go with the 6 month, because I thought it would have given us more flexibility as a board as we go through this. So I will make a motion that we reconsider and go along with the original suggestion of a 6 month contract with S&P to potentially be followed by 5 years. And that would just simply go back to the original proposal and potentially give the airport board a little bit more flexibility as we determine how we go forward, parking garage or not.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second to the motion? Is there a second to the motion? Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Captain, I will yield the chair to the vice chair and for the purpose of seconding the motion.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Is there a discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Hang on.
No.
Lind,
I'll give you the 6-month extension, yes. I think it's foolish, but I'll give you the 6-month extension just to give you some flexibility.
Ekman,
Aye.
Bosworth,
Aye.
Captain.
No.
Need to return the chair.
I will return the chair to the chairman.
All right. On the motion made and duly seconded, the majority vote was 4-2,
One.
or 3-2, excuse me.
3-2.
3-2 on support. All right. Anything else on that simple little topic? All right. On item 8, in our stunning tour through policies, the policy that we're looking at this time has been with us since 1997, and is simply the facilities development construction guidelines for construction on the airport. It's a little bit timely in that if this were in place back in the 50s, if there was a tank put out there and was leaking, this might deal with some of the liabilities thereof to the lessee and the lessor as the airport authority. But again, this is just setting forth the items that we have the expectation as an authority of the items that are the responsibility of somebody coming onto the property and building or operating and the airport itself. Sean, do you have any comments, or Darren?
We hand this out often, so it's still relevant today, and it's just our guideline, so.
And I guess I'd just ask Stacy if there's anything we might want to consider adding to this policy. And one other item is, this does speak to a dollar amount of $1 million in coverage, insurance coverage. $1 million today does not go as far as $1 million of coverage back in 1997.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Is it your goal to update the limits then to be current? Is that the goal or intended
I
goal?
think what we might want to do is ask our insurance providers what the recommendation would be at this point. It's kind of easy to when you do have dollar amounts in these, is to let them get a little bit out of date. I don't think this has been updated since 1997.
And the last sentence of what you're referring to, and Gary Stewart put this in, that this requirement is subject to change based on the type of use or operation proposed, so
Yeah.
it is variable. Our airlines have 25 million, most of our FBOs have 5 million minimum, and I think both FedEx and UPS carry substantially more. So that's addressed as the leases come forward, so. But for our private hangar owners, this goes back right when, 1 million combined single limit policy. I think that's still in effect. I can check with Mark LePage at North Star, who's our broker. I'm sure that's single limit for private hangar owners.
It's just so it would, if we want to take a look at that, move the coverage up. I don't think it's an economic hardship. If we're, looking at potential losses that could be caused by the lessees.
And do we need Stacy's input on this?
Just if there'd be any other liabilities that we may want to
Okay.
claim this. Sure. If we get some information on that and bring it back to a future meeting.
Stacy was on, I don't know if she still is or not. She must have dropped off.
All right. Number 9, receive update from Mead and Hunt. Again, here we go. Passenger terminal expansion.
Hey, thanks, hello
Yeah.
everybody, good to see you again. So, just an update, I did want to mention, just listening on the discussion of the parking ramp. We would recommend, just because of the progress that we made financially with that FAA, that certainly collaborate, but keeping it independent of the terminal project, because that likely would probably bog down our process adding scope at this point. So just something to keep in mind, that's our perspective of it. But moving on to the terminal, we're in design development now, we moved into design development. Hopefully you guys have had some time, exciting time right now, you're starting to see some images develop. Had some time to digest it, still open. As questions come up on what you're seeing, the exterior envelope, we feel like we have it pretty well nailed down. So now we're starting to develop details on that and you know, the materials being used. The interior is just a few steps behind that, just naturally by design, by this process. Now that we have the spaces laid out, arrangement wise where we want them. So now we want to start talking about the interior finishes and the look. And so the purpose of today is to start introducing you to some ideas and concepts based on the input sessions, based on some of the images Paula you sent. Thanks, very helpful. And it takes us a few steps ahead in the direction that we want to go. And so we have some new faces that you might see. These are the faces behind the scenes that are working on this project along with many others. But Brett Berry and Angie Corwin are our designer and project architect. And then we also have Gina Malika that is our lead interior designer. So she is going to be introducing, getting us a start on some of the interior concepts today. It's meant to be, casual dialogue as she's presenting some ideas. We want to hear your feedback on it. Like it, don't like it, any specific suggestions in direction. This is a great place to start. And then we will circle back around. So this design development phase is what we're in right now. We finish it in July, and then we go into construction documents. So before we're done with design development in July, we will circle back with finishes and present our direction and get another round of feedback there just to make sure we're heading in the right direction. Oh, and then I just wanted to give you an update on our progress just as a whole before we jump into that. We do have the schematic design set based on what you're seeing here out for a budget estimate, and we're expecting to see that back, budget estimate from our consultant, expecting to see that back in the next week or so. So that'll give us how aligned our design is with our budget. And then CMAR proposals. So the RFP is out there. We're getting a lot of feedback. We had a non-mandatory pre-proposal meeting last week and had some really good, a really good turnout there. We're getting good feedback and we anticipate good participation through that process. Those proposals, I've probably said this a dozen times already, April 21st is the date that we're gonna receive those proposals. We'll gather them, score them, and then move into the round of interviews beginning of May. I think that is all I had right now, so I'm gonna turn it over to Gina We'll have some images, it's kind of like a PowerPoint to just kind of help facilitate this discussion. Then we'll also be handing out some of the actual finished samples for you to take a closer look at and give us a reaction on that. Any questions on the direction or what we're about to do here? We were expecting about 45 minutes just to kind of run through this. But we'll see how it goes here. So, okay. Gina?
Morning. So as Brandon mentioned, we are getting ready for design development. So at this point for interiors, what we've been focusing on is concepts and are open to feedback. Would love to hear your feedback on what we've designed.
There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Ask if you can, please. Eric, can you see the screen?
Eric,
Yes, I can.
thank you.
Yes, I can.
All right.
Yeah, I can see it.
Oh,
Okay, go to the next
Top of
slide. Okay, all right.
No, like right, the microphone's on the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you want me to hit the slides? Okay.
So our overall color scheme for this project is warm neutrals, warm grays, which denote a sense of calm, relaxing, and then to accent with a deep green. The green reflects nature, balance, and it's taken from the inspiration around the airport. So that is the direction that we're going with our color scheme.
Yeah, well, we're just talking about the volume,
Okay.
trying to make sure that you guys can hear.
The inspiration for the interiors, first of all, is through our listening sessions to provide a lot of local art. The local art gives an invitation to the airport to show the culture of Fargo, so to pay attention to those installations. Also to update the current finishes, as you can see with the entryway, we're suggesting to paint the ceiling white, just to update it and bring it into more of a modern feel. And then also.
We won't paint the airplane white.
No.
No, it's just the structure.
You won't.
We won't, no, we're not done, we might remove the Yoda.
Yeah, you can get rid of Yoda and all that.
Is that what you should? And Mickey? The hold room, what our inspiration for the hold room is to create some intimate seating areas, some comfortable areas, a welcoming approach. As you can see, we did the living room, sofa and lounge chairs. We're also going to introduce a fireplace at the end of the new concourse. This is our inspiration for our carpet tiles. And here again, it's taking those natural elements, a variety of different gray tones, and also introducing the green. This is an interface product. It's 70% recycled content, and it has a 20-year warranty.
And this is the shape of it, right?
Uh-huh,
Gina?
it's a
So it's a
plank.
plank
It's a plank.
carpet, not your standard carpet tile, but plank.
So if someone spills their red or blue Gatorade down there, then what?
It's cleanable. It's bleachable.
And you
Clean.
can replace a tile.
You can just,
Yeah.
rub it out, so we can have attic stock
You
as
can't
well.
see it.
Porcelain panels we're suggesting for the walls. Porcelain is actually stronger than granite and more durable, so this is one of our directions that we're looking at for the walls. As far as the wood finish, when you see the architecture, there's a lot of wood columns inside the new structure. And we're suggesting more of a grayish, a whitewashed tone on the Douglas fir.
So that.
And then also
Was that on the first floor or the second floor?
the second floor.
The second,
That's
okay.
on the end of the concourse, far end of the addition.
Okay,
So it would be like over here at.
okay.
So, and then the fireplace,
Which one do you want?
the Petra slate, the smaller. Yeah.
So I always thought the end was gonna be windows because people wanted to see out on the airfield.
It will be, the fireplace will be set back and then there'll be windows on either side. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, some of the feedback from the VPS was kind of creating some welcoming zones, almost like
Intimate.
around like,
Yeah.
more intimate seating zones. So that's kind of one of the things that we were looking at creating. So it's not just a sea of beam seats, but we've got, some warm, welcoming zones of seating.
And that was one of the zones on the end, and then right as you discharged from the checkpoint, there was another small area there that we were trying to create one of those intimate soft seating areas.
And then also along the windows, we're suggesting maybe doing some soft seating along the windows, looking out onto the airfield, and then bringing the beam seating back inside the hold rooms.
I do want to check to Sean's comment about this is the end wall here, right? Do we have any windows and stuff like this? So, yeah, Sean, this is not indicative, like, this is more focused on the concept of the soft seating area, but we don't have the windows populated on this. So, maximize it. Next one.
These are just some of the components of the hold rooms. We're looking at the power tables, at counter height as well as our ADA height. Some stools that will be fixed, and here again introducing the green as an accent with the stools. Planters are going to be spread out throughout the space for some greenery, and then the soft seating is the chair up at the top that we were looking at for around the windows to take a look at those views of the airfield. Also the bench, to introduce the bench here again as an organic element in the hold rooms. Just a combination of different seating for that intimate spaces and different zones, and then as well as our beam seating.
Do you want some of your fabrics?
No, we're good. The wellness room is one of the comfort rooms that we will be introducing in the new concourse area. A wellness room is just someplace for a traveler to get away, to just to smoothing space, calm down. Next slide. This is our sensory room. This is a room for someone with autism that needs that sensory relief. It can both be stimulation, which is like the different light elements in this, or also someplace to just get away. And the chair there is designed for that type of situation where they can do both. They can still have the sensory of what's going on around them, but also feel secure and safe. Our playroom, this is an area for kids to get away. The center image is an image where we'd like to introduce the timeline of the airport. Those are tiles that can rotate, and what we'd like to do in the play area, which will also face the concourse, is introduce the timeline where it's an interactive piece where someone can come up and tap on an image of the timeline and be interactive with that. Also, other elements in the space, we were looking at some sort of climbing feature, that's that bottom image there. We didn't want to do actually a rock wall, but something that kids can climb on and have interactive play.
And the timeline that we had talked about, we spoke with Artworks, the local artist that their organization that the airport has been working with. And they had suggested something along the lines of this if we were looking at implementing a timeline design, so we could work with them and some of their contacts to come up with the concept.
And then this is the nurturing room. It's a place for infant care where a mother can get away. Will be featured in this room, as well as the rocking chair, comfortable seating. Will also be a sink and a microwave. And then this is just a look at the concourse with some of those elements that we discussed. The panels, the porcelain panels, the bench seating, as well as some of the soft seating.
Yeah, know that that's conceptual. I mean, some of that is hard to kind of read the wood tone in there and things. So this is an early snapshot. So we'll be continuing to coordinate together and develop our interiors for.
Very, very similar to how we approach the exterior. So, and I'll just mention that, when we were first looking at the exterior, it was about massing and then just general feeling like this, how this is looking here. And then with your feedback and input, we've evolved. So the interior is going to follow that same suit. So take this as more of a massing and the feel and the spatial arrangements, and we'll get there. We want to be sure to get your input before we make sure we're heading in the right direction.
So that is it for the presentation. I do have more samples on the table and would love to hear your feedback as far as colors, materials.
Comments?
One thing I think is really important is charging stations, like to have the ability to plug in it. I mean, now it seems like it's every other seat, there's a charging ability.
Exactly.
And these really cool looking benches on the right, I don't see a charging ability.
They are. Actually, what's in between the benches is a charging station.
Okay.
Yeah, there is charging there. And then also at our beam seating, there will be charging.
Okay.
And of course, at the tower table as well.
Okay.
Eric, did you have a comment?
I have a quick question. So we are, this looks great. I like the aesthetic look of everything. Are we going to also make the rest of the existing terminal look like the new addition?
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Thank you for asking that, Eric.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, good question.
I'm not the greatest at interior design, but I hate the tagline of that's in the old terminal and this is in the new terminal.
Right.
Well, our goal is to update so it is a cohesive design throughout.
We'll have to figure out some lines to draw, but
Yeah.
and then we're painting throughout, and the walls and the existing, anything exposed, basically painted, and we'll have a lot of new finishes throughout.
I got a question on some of your seating, and it might be just your design work, but a couple of slides ago, you had that seating that had backrest down to no backrest.
Mm-hmm.
Who's gonna sit in those things?
That one there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like who's gonna sit at this very end?
Dinosaur tail.
It'd be cold day in Hades before I'd sit there.
Families and kids love that type of seating. We've had great success with families and younger people, younger generation, they enjoy that type of seating. So we want to accommodate to everyone. So.
Yeah, varying the options is just a great approach. I think, I mean, people, on a lot of our previous projects, we've got the standing, we've got the soft comfortable, we've got the traditional beam seats and some of the cool featured window seats. So just mixing it up gives people like, their own place to go and,
Okay.
people
All right.
have a variety.
And then the other thing on your fish tank, if we have to have a fish tank? Don't put exotic fish in it.
No.
That's a virtual.
Yeah, it's virtual.
Darren, you gonna feed those things?
Yeah, I don't like this. Good.
It's virtual. It wasn't
Okay.
a real fish tank. Thanks for paying attention.
What was kind of fun about that though was like a projector that projected some water on the floor. Just for the kids,
Back one more.
the kids play area.
Or forward.
One more.
Sorry.
Right there, yeah.
I mean, I
Go through the
can
screens.
see something like, what's that place up at Grand Forks, you got your walleyes and your bass and a local type fish, not those things.
Yeah, that's funny. We actually had that discussion about localizing the
well.
big
Fish. Yeah.
Catfish isn't very visual.
So that is just an interactive element. I mean, there's so much on the screen, it's just
And
different.
it doesn't show it, but the lower right hand, it's projecting images like the feeling of being underwater onto the floor. So
The gray bars and like that.
Yeah,
I have a question for you.
sure.
How high will the ceilings be in the new edition as in compared to our current space?
About 16 feet in the concourse
So it'll be
area.
newer.
Yeah,
I mean,
so it's a little
higher.
bit, it's a little,
Okay.
probably a couple of feet higher than the
Okay.
existing, yeah.
And then are you going to be working with our food vendors that are gonna be creating some new restaurant
Yes,
type of?
yes, so
Okay,
Skydyne, we had discussions with them during the study, and pretty much started there, and we've already had, 2 other meetings with them. It is gonna be dependent on how the board, chooses to move forward, with their leases, because, we can really dial in, the restaurant designs if we have them on board right now.
I think we've extended those leases, haven't we, for the first Skyline? No?
No, Skyline and the gift shop, there's no other really way to do it. I mean, it's an awkward situation, but they need someone on board now to help them. And I don't know that they're gonna be really willing to spend all that time and effort if they don't know if they're gonna be here.
I thought we renewed that lease for continuity, no?
Discussion of it.
And I could certainly have them at the next meeting, bring their extension requests in,
We took some action on those leases, so.
not to extend them.
What action did?
When
we
is their
They
lease up?
just gave a proposal, I think it's in, I
Okay.
don't have the date, 2024. They came in and gave a proposal, but then also expressed a concern that they're going to spend this time and effort to work with the consultant that they've got on for concession space. And they may not be the one that's picked. And they need someone on board that's gonna be there ready to operate on day one.
Oh, I
And
thought
to
we,
go out for an RFP is senseless because you don't know what to tell someone in an RFP, what kind of space you're gonna have. to do it.
When is their lease up?
I think it's in 2024, I'd have to double check.
So they do have some time.
because I thought they said they were talking to like a local coffee vendor
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
They've got
small.
them all picked. They
Okay,
already know what they're gonna do with their concepts.
And we have a concessions consultant on board to help guide them with, the right mix of what to have pre-secure and post-secure based on, the demographic here and, what our consultant has designed at other airports. So, I think we have a pretty good setup here to, come up with a successful program.
Okay.
It's just, we wanna make sure that, I think they wanna make sure that they have incentive to follow through with the design that we're gonna be putting forward.
I think the concept that they're having, obviously a full kitchen, a restaurant similar to what they have now, a Schlotsky's Deli type thing, a Cinnabons, both pre and post security options, so.
Okay.
There's a lot of decisions that they need to be making by the end of the year.
Would it be advantageous to renew their lease before it's up? I mean, like, next meeting or
I
something?
think so, I mean, that's what we've talked about, it definitely would be for the consultant.
I think that would be kind of a smart idea in order to get them on board with these people, so.
Because at this point, a different vendor to go out at this point and come and step into design space that they might have a totally different concept, which is fine. But then to get financing in place and everything else, what's the airport gonna build, the cabinetry and so forth? What are we gonna put in as far as electrical and HVAC?
And that will likely push, just in rough as we're talking about phasing, if we had to layer in an RFP process to bring in somebody else to design it, I'm thinking those spaces in the expansion that we're gonna do for concessions would probably have to move into like a phase down the road just because it's gonna be a little bit behind. So we would have to white box finish the concessions areas in the addition and then come back through. Whereas if we continue with these guys, I think we can layer that in and have it part of the phase where we build out the addition, so it would be all done before we move into remodeling the
Mr. Chair,
existing.
Yes.
I find it ironic that now we're wishing to extend a contract for someone to finish something in here, and we just undid that outside. Just a comment.
Thank you.
There's more information on the SP Plus stuff I'm getting from Stacy and Greg, so. What you get is-
Another element that we are looking at the concept of is a preserved type moss, especially as you come out of the new checkpoint, there's gonna be a feature wall. And we'd like to bring in the greenery, the biophiliac elements. And so what we're looking at is a preserved moss product. It's not a faux plant, it's a preserved plant. It's done through a process of freeze-dried and glycerin. And these are some of the products that we're looking at for that. This product in particular, they will take an image, an artwork image, and incorporate the moss into the artwork image. And here again, working with artworks, we can come up with that image.
Gina, what's that product called?
Plant for the future, plant the future.
Plant the future. There's some pretty compelling images we were after.
So this is not gonna be real moss,
It's preserved.
preserved,
It is real, yeah.
I mean,
It's real.
it's not breathing, it's not
It
breathing.
doesn't need to be
Okay.
watered
I have-
or
Okay.
maintained other than dusting, I suppose, every once in a while. It's a low maintenance option to like an
And they make
actual.
a spray to clear the dust off.
Oh, okay.
I know, I just had to do it to everything in our house.
Okay. So you're familiar. Awesome.
If I can add just one little thing, we're doing a number of projects probably this is probably one of the hottest discussion items by clients.
It's the
Moss?
Yeah.
Buy a lawnmower?
No.
When you say hot, is it contentious
popular,
or, oh, it's very
popular,
popular, okay, alright.
Yeah, because it's maintenance free. It's a live product.
Check your red meter if you're throwing on that.
This month.
I'd say that, I was over there looking.
Oh, plant?
Uh-huh.
Plant.
Oh, sorry guys.
And I don't think
Yeah.
on it
It's not a living.
it's not a living law.
Those are plastic.
Plant the future.
It's a fake living wall, chemically preserved.
One thing
I'm sorry guys.
One thing I do notice as I travel is that the tall and short, encounters where people have the power and, kids and adults and laptops and people are charging and sitting and
Power
and
tools.
like visiting,
Right.
as opposed to just sitting in chairs in a row like a family. or, you know, people that are traveling like to sit at those tall counters with the affixed stools. That seems to be really popular.
It is, and also what's really popular is not to have the stools, you know, that now the stand
Just the
desks
stand,
are
yeah.
real popular.
So that's an
That too
image
is-
of,
And they use them sometimes as like a divider between the walking space
Exactly.
and the.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
In our conceptual design, we had them at, say, framing, the hold rooms or the beam seating, and we have the power tables framing it on either end.
Okay.
And for this, floor plan, it worked well as far as flow, and then we had the, benches outside of that.
So one thing I did wanna mention, at the end of, I added some pictures, but it was the North Dakota Aviation Hall of Fame. And it's an interactive display that shows videos, and the monitor's about this big. And it has, I think we've got one at the Fargo Air Museum, and they've got one in Bismarck,
They've offered one here, we just haven't.
have the space or.
We've on the Wall of Honor now on the second floor, but it's something that we could add.
I mean, as we're looking at different interactive displays, that would be something that would be
That would be terrific.
a part of our
Yeah.
region or.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, and the more we can reflect that, I think the better.
Can
But
we
if
send
you actually
Ross
wanted to
over
see it,
Eric
it's at the
if
Fargo
that's
Air
your-
Museum.
Sure.
I made note of that,
Okay.
so yeah, we definitely need to get over there, take a look. So, yeah, just to keep in mind, you know, we are looking at biophilia, like incorporating it, it's a calming wall. A lot of airports are putting in like what they call living walls, where it's greenery, and you're probably seeing that. This approach is about as low maintenance as you can get, so if you're not a green thumb, this, you know, won't turn brown on the wall. So that's why we were looking at this with low maintenance in mind.
And this is the company that does the artwork. So, this is the one that takes an image and will incorporate the moss into the artwork. And can be a custom artwork, so we can get.
You could do an airplane. Or
We
you
could do an airplane or a bison or,
Oh,
So
yeah.
someplace in the background, you had a picture of the Badlands or whatever, I mean, you're not suggesting that, that's just an idea.
Just
We're
an
not
idea.
really
Yeah,
Badlands.
yeah. But here again, this is just taking that positive and negative space of the art and using the moss.
So like the Red River, like even if you have the Fargo Moorhead neon sign on the end there, which I love every time you see it. You could do something like that similar here on the wall too, along maybe the Red River.
and another way to bring in the local art, you know, engage that artworks community and get people's heads together on what would be the best expression of the area.
Do you have any pictures or concepts for the executive space? And also I was curious about employee break room space
We already have a break room.
for the
Tuck
employees.
concourse, yes.
Okay.
All the employees have a break room in the Tuck concourse that they can use. Some like to use it, others like to get away, some other part of the terminal that have privilege, so.
Okay.
But it is available, it's in the Tuck concourse.
And we're looking at refreshing that too as part of this project.
Okay.
I think some of the input sessions, we were gonna put additional restrooms in there. That was one thing we had heard on it. And then as far as the admin space, we did just get the arrangement laid out and finalized, so now we're starting to look at like spaces and furniture arrangements for up there. So we'll have some images, we don't have them yet.
Okay, and you're working with like Joan and getting all
Yes.
her ideas, good.
Yeah, Terry,
Yeah, okay,
yeah, Terry Stroh is part of our team, and he sat down with the admin staff, I think a week or two ago, and really dialed in what they needed out there.
We've got a good footprint for the office.
oh, good, good. Okay. And TSA had, their area will be adjacent to the new security, or where is that?
Some will be there,
That's-
some will be all of this.
Oh,
Including
okay,
our own offices that pretty much take one in school.
okay,
Yeah, based on the forecast that we did and the study and the amount of square footage TSA typically programs for airport this size, we white box a space out. And then TSA has their own like design group, and they'll lay out their furniture, their office arrangements. So they're working on that now. We just handed over the footprint, but they have to work with.
and then for the nursing room,
Mhm.
or that's just a family room, or is it a nursing room?
It's a nursing room.
And can multiple people use it at one time? It looked big,
No, it's just for one
one
person.
person at a time,
Mhm.
okay. And there's one of those,
One of those
okay,
in the current design.
okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any restroom ideas?
We are now developing the restroom.
Okay.
I did take into account all your notes on the restroom.
I took so many pictures,
Yeah,
which is a little
yeah.
creepy, right? And I
We're like, hopefully they were
Yeah.
unoccupied.
I was trying not to be, but there's the one design in Minneapolis that has the trough sink, and then there's an actual space, and then a space about this large that a woman could put her purse.
Right, the
And, or
shelving, yes.
a coffee or a phone, and it doesn't get wet, and it seems like every other design of sinks, they're always wet, and you never have, here's a woman, you're trying to like hold your purse and wash your hands. and-
Right, yeah, yeah.
Evan out of our office actually did that restroom project,
Mhm.
so, I mean, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in the Minneapolis office,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah, the Minneapolis bathrooms are.
yeah.
So a shelf above,
Yeah.
It's like just separate from the sink so that you've got a space to set items to stay dry.
So that, and then we also will be incorporating, the ideas of having enough room in a stall for your baggage, and like all that makes
That-
perfect sense.
yeah. Yeah, for your carry-on luggage,
Yeah.
that depth in the stall, as well as a shelf in the stall and a hook,
Mm-hmm.
like
Okay.
what you also had mentioned. And then touchless, we're looking at, of course, the touchless faucet, contactless faucet, and soap dispenser, and hand dryer.
Okay.
So, yeah, now that architecture has that envelope, we'll start diving into those elements in the restroom.
And I don't know how a bathroom or a facility does it or doesn't do it, but you know how when you have the automatic faucet and sometimes the water's hot at some places, and sometimes it's like always cold, or it takes a long.
There's
You
a
want-
regulator within there that balance, you set an initial balance, and I think
It's always been
what
cold.
happens there is if it's a long distance from the water heater, all of a sudden you just have tempered cold water for a while until it warms up. So there's engineering solutions to that we will
It would just be great if
incorporate.
people can wash their hands with hot water, it's just
Yeah.
nice cleaner, I don't know. If that's the location of where the water heater is, or
Instantaneous or a
You know what I mean.
recirc loop.
you're washing your hands with cold water, it just doesn't seem
Right.
Yeah, it's a pet peeve of mine too.
as clean, I don't know.
I hate to bring it up, but what are we doing for gender neutral facilities?
Mhm.
We got a plan there too.
We usually address those as family restrooms. So you have the individual restrooms, for whatever reason, or however you identify, you have a family individual restrooms, to acknowledge and for those individuals that need it.
So we do have some goofy legislators.
Well, I'm concerned with federal grant dollars being involved if we don't bring federal guidelines along as well as state guidelines, so. You just take after the fact for those.
Yeah, you'll see, I mean, our charge is to go, barrier-free, multi-stall restrooms, and then we'll have the dedicated family restrooms, and then we'll have the nursing rooms as well.
So will the walkways be solid surface and then the side areas be carpet?
Yes,
Okay.
and the hold rooms will be the carpet, and then the main concourse walkways will be hard surface,
Okay.
as well as in
And
the
what-
restrooms.
And that's what surface for the flooring?
We are looking at possibly doing
The matte
porcelain,
version of that,
the
right?
matte version of this, as well as the white. So a combination.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay.
Cause I was like, that would be really slippery.
No, this is,
Okay.
this is only rated for
Especially when you have a little
walls.
snow on your
Yeah.
shoes.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
alright, okay. I was
It'll
just,
be large format too, within reason of buildability and
It's
stuff.
I was
So we're trying to
okay.
maximize the size of the tile so that there's less joints and less.
And the floor panels are thicker. This is the wall panel, the floor
Okay.
panel is thicker. And we're looking at a design of incorporating the green and then also a natural wide gray tile with it as well.
I think specifically big picture items that we're looking at, that we'd kind of like to get some good feedback on is direction of the living wall, if you guys are, the living wall, the
Preserved wall.
the preserved wall. If you're open to that, we'll continue to gather information on that and develop an idea of what that image could be. The wood, this is gonna be the deck and the beams are all gonna be parallel.
Well, so we're using mass timber for this project, everything above the so the concourse floor and above is gonna be timber. And that's both columns and beams, and it's also gonna be panelized roof, structural roof members, and those are large, those are gonna be set in place, and they're called cross-laminated timber panels, and those are gonna be potentially exposed, so you'll be able to see wood surface from the inside as well. But those are, a thick, they're basically like a thick plywood. I mean, it's roughly 6 to 8 inches thick, but it's
But you appear, it's just you're seeing bottom of a wood deck.
natural wood,
Yeah.
Do they have to be treated every so often for maintenance or what? Like a treat?
No.
No treatment?
So, and we had talked about that, cause pine, Doug fir, yellow pine, like, it ages over time, turns
It
yellow
will
or
yellow.
whatever,
If
it was
it's pine,
natural.
it will yellow.
Yes. So, that is why we're looking at, cause we like the whiteness of maple, something of that nature, and so you can put a finish on it, something similar to this, it's kind of like a whitewash. I don't like to call it a whitewash, but it keeps the whiteness like maple wood, but with the pine species.
And since there will be a lot of wood in the concourse, like we did want to lighten the tone just a little bit so it didn't feel dark or heavy inside. We wanted just to brighten it up a little bit, so that's kind of one of the reasons why we were going with the whiter color.
So,
On your fake living wall,
yeah,
instead of having a hodgepodge of nothing, design wise, could you, just a thought, could you incorporate like from the South Dakota border to the Canadian border, the Red River along with the maple and the Cheyenne and the
Sure.
goose and
yes.
use those instead of nothing?
I love that.
I love that idea too. I love that
Yeah.
idea.
Say, a question on that is, when you do this preserved wall, is it like, would it be up and out of the reach of people?
Yes.
So people don't, maybe you said that already, but.
Yeah.
you know,
Our,
Because that human tendency is gonna be to go up and touch it.
Yeah.
Pull it, try it, yeah.
yeah,
The cost of finishings like walls and stuff in the last terminal expansion aren't eligible, correct?
Yeah.
So anything that you're adding here as far as fluff things, they aren't eligible, so those are all out of our pocket, just keep that in mind. The FA only pays for so much of it, so. As you add things, they're basically gonna give you 4 walls and a ceiling and some lights and an HVAC. You start to go beyond that, decorative type designs on our own.
that's kind of why we look at wood structures too, because it is, it's a finished look, but it also has a structural purpose.
Do you have any concepts for the main floor, the entry level? Like behind each airline counter, is that something that's finished by the airline, or is that finished by our airport?
We'll have that, we'll have that finished, and we're not there yet.
Okay.
We have some counter finished ideas that we can share today, that like kind of ideas of direction that we were looking at heading.
Okay.
I just, for the wood, no, you know, you don't have to decide today. We were looking to get a reaction of like, oh, no way, don't go a different direction, go.
No, that's not the reaction.
But, or if, that's something we would absolutely consider. So, if there's any, you know, if you have any questions or ideas to me or through Sean, feel free to.
And along those lines, also like the check-in counters, is there, will those be replaced? Are those gonna be updated?
It's up to each airline.
It's up to
So we
each,
provide a shell.
Okay.
So like Delta and United, they put in their own system, it's up to each airline what they want to take in the other area.
But we'll design a cohesive shell for each of those.
And they may not use it.
Yeah.
Delta's is totally exposed, we don't have any shells down there, the same with United.
Okay.
So if the other airlines want to put in just their kiosks up front, that's up to them.
And we're meeting with each airline individually. So we'll take in all their information and make sure when you're standing down there that the whole front relates to each other.
Okay.
We just want to make sure that it's functional for each airline. Their process.
And if we have an airline, say we've got a Sun Country that uses a gate twice a week, I mean, if there was a screen behind it that would say Sun Country for that boarding period, and then something else for the rest of the time.
Yes. Yes, we have talked about having certain gates. Certain gates are going to have airlines have shown interest in having their dedicated gates, but then there will be others that will be flexible based on your flight schedule.
And in those locations, we were thinking also bringing in a warmer tone wood to complement the lighter tones. So maybe behind the ticket counters or those gate counters, we'll bring in some warmer tone woods as well.
Are you envisioning carpet or a solid surface for the TSA pre-check area? The security area?
TSA, I think we were looking at carpet.
We've discussed both, and there are advantages and disadvantages, of course, to both. Solid surface is cleaner, easier to maintain. Carpet, of course, is more comfortable when you have your shoes off. So we're exploring both options. Do you all have an opinion?
I think you have carpet now, right?
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Yeah, just sound, I mean, you have a large assembly of people in an area, so the more acoustically that you can do to absorb sound, the calmer feeling.
I was thinking the carpet might be more cost efficient.
It would be,
Yeah.
yes, it would be.
It's also an area where there's a lot of floor modifications made as technology changes, and they end up kind of chopping things up from time to time, so like being able to kind of
Carpet's more
cover that
forgiving.
back up, you know?
Okay, alright,
Yeah,
just
great
curious.
point.
And the acoustical properties of carpet are definitely an advantage in that space.
How long is TSA gonna continue here making us take our shoes off?
Good question.
Well, after a certain age, you don't have to. Before the age of 12 and what's the,
Just get pre-check.
yeah.
Other, and some of the colors that we're, and things that we were showing. Is there any questions or concerns in kind of the color palettes that we're looking at? Or strong opinions?
I'm not gonna talk fluff anymore.
One thing I have noticed in airports recently is the darker gray carpet in some of the seating areas, and I know you said something about like, you know, with the lighter color, just showing more like a juice box or something.
When you spill out here now, you don't see anything.
Yeah.
What we do is we come on wet or wet back it. That's my concern with this, we're gonna be changing out the panels constantly.
Well, there are a lot of dark tones in this carpet. It's one of the darker choices. I mean, I can
Even the
look.
coffee spill, we have coffee spills every day.
Yeah.
You don't see it now, but.
The carpet's brown.
Correct.
And I could look at other options as far as that goes, but this is pretty dark.
You're saying something more like what you're
Well,
seeing
yeah,
here.
from a maintenance standpoint,
Yeah.
But that too, I mean, every airport has coffee spills. But, you know,
Is the carpet pretty, what do they call it, stain resistant or
It is.
or treated or,
It is treated, yeah.
so it kind of heats up a little bit?
Well, yeah, there's carpet, like walk-off carpet, stuff that is super resilient to that stuff. And there's also stuff they use in, I've seen them use them in like classrooms and stuff, it's like, almost like a plastic fiber.
Right. Okay. So this does have the stain resistance to it.
Okay.
But I could look at more of a brown coffee or stain, coffee color.
Stain resistant, not stain proof.
Yeah, stain resistant.
I like the colors, I like the greens, I think that's a timeless color, and I like the woods that you brought in and kind of the natural feels.
Yeah.
And I can leave these with you, you could spill coffee and just.
Actually, that's not a bad idea, but like, use it, test it out, and see how it looks.
Well, the good news is maybe we could, you know, because they can't bring the liquid through security, we could like say if there's a vending machine or a something that they're selling, like please no red Gatorade or, you know, like, I mean, you could maybe control that a little bit, like how Disney World doesn't sell gum, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to clean it up.
Yeah.
So they don't frisk you for gum on your way in, but you're not going to be able to buy it anywhere inside the gates.
All right.
That's good.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I know Greg and Stacy are still on, there's been some chatter after the action that you had taken. The S&P Plus request actually was for a 5-year extension, that's what you approved. The reason that you're confused with the 6-month is their current budget runs July 1 to June 30.
Fiscal year.
So what they would have is a July 1 to December 31st of this year thing. Their lease already goes through December 31st of 2023. That was approved way back when. So
Okay.
your action today actually extends their lease out to June 30th of 2024. So SP will have the decision, do they want to do another 1-year budget or whatever. The intent was to get their budget on our calendar year. So right now your action today extends their lease to June 30th of 2024. Stacy, is that correct? Gregory?
That's correct.
All right, thank you. The only other item of business we've got here is some meeting timing here. Our April meetings are the 11th and the 25th, I believe. I will be out of town, both of those.
I'll be here the 25th.
So Jim will be available. And Rick?
Yep, I will be here then.
You're talking about the parking meetings?
No.
You're talking about these meetings?
Airport
Okay,
authority meeting.
okay,
I can attend, I'll try to attend by Zoom. It's very difficult to run the meeting by Zoom when you're not in person. So I would just,
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll attend the 11th, April 11th meeting
you're by Zoom,
by Zoom from New York.
Rick, so
I'll be
New
present.
York.
will you be by Zoom also, or?
I'll be present.
Okay, will you then?
Chair. I will chair.
Chair that meeting? All right.
And I'll chair the
25th.
25th.
Okay, and the compensation, of course, is the same.
Okay.
Unless it's changed at the meeting for the next meeting.
That could happen. The only other thing is, we could try and change the meeting dates, but I think if we go ahead with those, that's it.
It's kind of set in stone.
We'll go from there.
can I, add something to the, agenda for next time?
Yes.
I would love to, when we were at the Bismarck meeting and we were doing a roundtable, and there was a lot of discussion about employee retention and basically how the employees, say for American Airlines, if they take an hour and a half to get the luggage off the carousel, it reflects badly on the airport, even though it's not our employees. So in an effort to, say, recognize employees and to maybe assist with the companies that are with, running the private contractors that have employees at the airport, if we had like a employee recognition type of thing where we could recognize employees or do something to, like maybe that would help with employee retention.
Okay.
We do what's called the High Flyer Award, so it's been awarded once. That was done, Tammy Lynn brought that up during her term. So there is a vehicle in place already.
Okay.
Who then would select that person, I have no idea.
Okay, you want that on the agenda for discussion and
Maybe if we could-
implementation of the program?
Like look at that program, or if there's anything we can do to enhance it, or, like maybe that might be one more way that without too great of a cost that we could assist our partners in retaining
Is that
employees.
something we could ask Pro Resources to?
We just probably get the station managers together and have a system where they can nominate someone, I guess.
So put on that, on the agenda for the 11th. It'll be sunny and 70 degrees on April 11th, I'm pretty sure.
I think we all wanna say thank you to our employees who do a good job anyways. I mean, like, Rick, I was thinking about when you organized the lunch for the maintenance guys, and I think everybody likes to be thanked and recognized, and if there's any way that we can do a little bit more of that.
So a question, the ground crews, United and Delta have a common ground crew that they use, or are they separate?
Delta and Frontier use Unify.
Okay,
American uses Envoy, uses United Ground Express.
Okay.
And Sun Country and Allegiant use Worldwide Flight Service.
so there's 4 or 5 different blocks of people.
All right, anything else? Meeting adjourned.